welcome to another episode of A Pinch of Everything. My name is Elizabeth from Psychology for Geeks, and
And I'm David.
Yes, that is David. And today I'm basically going to be lecturing David as to why Loki is the GOAT and he is an absolute legend, and also why he inspired me to become a therapist.
Wow.
So, all right. So I tend to rumble on, ADHD brain or whatever. So, and also because it's Loki. So I actually have like a script right there in front of my computer, in front of my face, so I can see and sort of like keep track of all the things that I wanted to hit and like all the points and whatnot. So we'll see. But I mean, we both have ADHD, so there is 100% chance that we are going to just get sidetracked and like ramble on about something. And also, I just wanted to point out, in case you guys didn't notice, that this is actually the first video, or like the first, no, not the first one, because we did like the first episode for Avatar and for One Piece. It was with video, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess this is
Methinks.
first episode with like a better camera and a better system. There's wires everywhere. You don't want to see the behind the scenes of that. Is not great. Anyway, I want to start by talking about why I love Loki. I love it so much because, well, I love him as a character so much because the way he's portrayed, specifically by like Tom Hiddleston. I've read some of the Loki comics, but like not. It was like one or two, so it's like
It was not one or
many.
two. It was a lot of them. It was 3 volumes of it, and that's a lot.
Well, yeah, but like that was one series, I guess. Like, I'm trying to say I'm not, because I realized I'm starting like this like Loki collection of like my favorite comics and the little Funko Pops, and then just like Loki things. And I realized that there's so many more comics than what I thought were out there, and I need to collect them all because I want them.
Oh yeah, there is an enormous amount of different types of comics just in general. It is insane, but like, in the membrane.
I only care the ones about Loki, and yeah.
Because yeah, I'm just putting it out there.
Comics. See, okay, so we're recording this the weekend after we watched the final episode of season 2 for the Loki series, and I say
I have very little context.
Yes, so I, as a Loki fan, I watched the first season and the second season, and I've seen every movie that Loki's in. But David, I think, has only seen the movies and has not seen the show. But the last episode was so good that David just stood in front of my TV and watched it with me because it was so good.
I didn't know such thing.
Yes. I was going to say I have proof, but I don't. I should have. Anyway, yeah, so I actually started, this is David, settle down, get comfy, because I am starting my talk about Loki. And this is probably something that he already knows because I talk about Loki with him all the time, because my friends are like all over the place, and sometimes, we're all adults, have different schedules and whatnot, and some of them don't really even care about Loki, so I don't really have anyone to talk to about Loki. Anyway, point being, the camera is like zooming in and out. It's really weird, bro.
That's very perplexing.
Dude, I don't know if it's a camera of like my eyes. Like, it's just not, my eyes are not working. Okay, it might be my eyes. Okay, focus. I have the script in front of me and I can't even focus on that. Okay, so anyway, I actually started liking Loki as a character because of the interviews that Tom Hiddleston gave. Because every time he was asked a question about his character or how he prepared for the role, it was always this super in-depth response that was just so amazing that I was like, hey, this character is great. And I think at that point, Avengers had not come out yet. I think the first Thor movie had come out, so it was like I was watching just all the interviews that he gave for Thor. But usually, like, sometimes you have two different sort of like types of actors when they're like being interviewed. Sometimes you get actors that are like oh, I just read the script and did whatever the script said, right?
Yeah, I
That's
just
usually the response.
performed whatever they tell me, not really look into the character or not really care about the thing that they're doing. They're just in there to either get another
Yeah.
paycheck or spend some time, I guess.
Yeah. And so every time Tom Hiddleston gave an interview, not just about Loki, but anything else, he was always very like, oh, I read this book and I did this one thing and like I talked to so and so. And then I was like, whoa, like he's actually putting like so much effort. And for a fan, that's the kind of response you want to hear because you want to hear more about your favorite character, not just it was in the script. Like sometimes I understand that the script is very good and you don't have to add a lot of it, but still, like, I don't know, just talk about it. We want to hear everything, especially if it's like our favorite character. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into, like, I guess paying more attention to Loki. um and i I never really thought about why I liked him until there was like a lot of posts and like things on social media where people were like, why is everybody like more attracted to the villains than the heroes, and like what's happening? And then they're like being like, oh, Marvel, why are you making all the like the villains be super attractive? And I was like, this is why we're confused, this is why everybody like be liking all
Why
the
is everybody so
um
sexy?
yeah, basically. And then I started thinking, I was like, okay, so why do I like Loki? Obviously Tom Hiddleston is a great actor, and I love him. Everything he does is amazing too. But then I started thinking about like just Loki as a character, and I just loved that he just does whatever he wants. He keeps himself entertained and he doesn't really care, or it seems like he doesn't really care what other people think of him, right? And me growing up with like so much anxiety that I thought was like normal, I was like, oh, I could never do that, right? I have thoughts, I think about doing things, but I'm like, oh, but if I say that, then it's gonna be mean or it might hurt someone's feelings. So, like, I don't say it or I don't do it.
You become
But, like, this,
extremely self conscious and self aware. Well, not
yes,
necessarily
but,
self
like,
aware, but like very self conscious.
yes, definitely. And so I was like, well, Loki doesn't seem to care. And he always seems to be having fun and he's always going off and doing something crazy. And then I was like, David, this, you might relate to this, but because he's always like, because he's the god of mischief and chaos or whatever. And then I'm like, he's always wanting to cause like mischief and chaos, and he's always like bored and he's like, oh, me do this. I'm like, make fun of Captain America by imitating him or whatever, right? And then I'm like, he's almost in a way like the representation of like the ADHD brain, because he's always like, ooh, what can I do next? Like, I'm bored of this, like I'm gonna go do something else, kind of thing.
ADHD
And I think
personified. You heard it here, folks. That is the only reason why she likes him.
no, that's not the only reason. I listed like 4 or 5 things already, probably.
Did you though?
One of the things, well, I have a list. I haven't gone through them, but by the end of my list, yes, it would be 5 or whatever. I didn't count them. Anyway, I think it's just part of it is that like he always seems to be having a lot of fun, not really caring like what other people say or what he does or what he does. Wait, yeah. Anyway, and he also is so relatable because he's always getting picked on. Like in the first Thor movie, you saw him like just all of Thor's friends, and including Thor, they would just make fun of him, right? And then I'm like, I think we all had that experience at some point in our lives where people would just make fun of him, or were you like didn't quite fit
Ostracized,
in?
moved
Yeah.
out the way. Yeah.
Well, like, so it wasn't until like what is it, Thor 3 that we realized that Hela was like a part of the, I guess, Asgardian royal family, and she also had black hair. But before then we were like, Loki doesn't look like he's part of the family. Like, he was like, his coloring was just kind of like completely different. He didn't really fit the ideal sort of like Asgardian. Yeah, sure, he was tall and strong and all these things, but like he preferred to use magic. Asgardians like didn't really use magic or whatever. So it was a lot of him trying to be himself in a place where he just did not fit in at all, and in a place where he was basically like gaslighted, like left and right. Like he just couldn't. Like if he was doing something, he was like too girly, or he was like doing something that just was not great, right? Because a lot of it, like he just keeps repeating over and over again that he was meant to be king, that it was something that he was born to be, and that's something that Odin told him. And then when Loki did something to try to become king, Odin was like, I don't remember ever saying that. Like, no, that's not how it goes. But I'm like, but you literally told him you're both born to be king. So how else is he supposed to take it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, he keeps coming back. So like even if he dies, he doesn't die. And like as a fan, and I'm like, yes, because we get to see him more often. But that also sort of like talks about like how much he really wants to live. Like he may be making like the wrong decisions and being sort of like a villain or like anti-hero or whatever thing he is, but he just wants to live. And yeah, so like there was a lot of times like in the past, like probably like 10 years, that I was so focused on like reaching my goals and like, you know, finishing school, going to grad school, doing all these things that I really wanted to do. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but the bad thing was that I was so focused on that I forgot to actually enjoy my life. And so I was just kind of like doing the things that I needed to do in order to like survive. I was basically like in survival mode, and I wasn't actually.
You're just
like,
going through the motions, not really experiencing what you were doing.
Yeah, and then so like that's like, again, it's part of like that Loki charm where he's just always having fun, and even though he's in trouble, he's still having fun. Like when he got captured at the end of the Avengers, he was like, he got beat up by the Hulk, like he got Hulk smashed, and then he was in chains, and he was like just like mimicking Captain America. He was just like, I don't know, just like, this is amusing to me, so I'm gonna do it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. And a lot of my information, or a lot of sort of like the information that I got was like Loki as a whole, I kind of got from like a lot of the fan fiction that I was reading, because there's so much like Loki fan fiction out there, like sort of like pulling apart his character. And of course, in every single movie that he's a part of, he always loses. So as a fan, I'm like, no, he just needs a win, man. So like that's why
he just needs a slight victory, man. Come on, give that guy a treat. He deserves a win.
A little one. Yeah. And then so yeah, I don't know, I just like felt really bad for him, because like he clearly was me clearly, but I'm like super biased too, because he's like my favorite character. So I'm like, yeah, clearly he was like not evil from the beginning, which might not be like completely evident to people, but whatever. Oh, so one of the things that fan fiction led me to realize is that Loki didn't really fit in Asgard, or like the Asgardian culture, is because he's sort of like the god of chaos, and chaos sort of like brings about change. For example, you know how during COVID, a lot of things, like a lot of kids like were still in school, but it was just like all like online or whatever. Like if you needed to go to a doctor's appointment, like now you could do it online or just like via phone calls, and that wasn't something that you could do in the past.
Yeah, you can do a lot of things remotely, like how you had mentioned school. Did you know that like a lot of kids grew up during the pandemic, basically had a culture shock when they had to actually go to school?
What, like the little babies were they started like pre-K or like kindergarten like online, and they actually had to go to school. I assume it was like very tough for them to like socialize with other kids, right? And not have parents be around all the time. Yeah, it must have been hard. But yeah, so like chaos sometimes like brings about change, right? Like that's necessary in order for us to be able to survive past that chaos. And so Loki will bring chaos to Asgard, but Asgard was almost in a sense like refusing to change. So it was very much like like he was trying to make Asgard change, but he wouldn't. And then like we saw like once he actually like became king, or like he took over, he was pretending to be Odin. The change that he brought about was just
Minimal and not
bring
that
more
bad.
art. He just brought more art to the Asgardian people and
And
made himself
entertainment.
look better. Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay. Like a lot of people, like other people would be like, oh, you're all my slaves now. Like I've been waiting for
Yeah,
this,
like
like for like the
military.
past
We're
three
gonna
movies,
destroy
right?
everything. I want more power. But Loki, honestly, he just wanted to vibe and fit in to the point where he coveted the only seat that can allow him to fit in.
And be accepted, right? Because I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
part of like what he wanted. Like he thought, hey, if I fulfill this role that my dad told me that I was born to be, maybe I will be accepted and I'll be happy and I'll be able to do all the things that I wanted to do, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I just wanted to like go through some of the or point out some of the changes that Loki was like, able to bring about because of the chaos that he's causing, right? Like in the Avengers film, he brought the Avengers together because he brought like war to Earth. So he like made them come together. He also kind of like in a roundabout way made Thor become a better person, right? Because not that he planned it, but it just so happened, right? Like he caused something and like a bunch of things happened that led to like a better change, I guess.
Through chaos,
Um
aka change, there is strife, and you have to go through all of it in order to come up the other side a different
yeah,
person. Whether it's good or bad, honestly
exactly.
depends on you.
Well, I mean, like on the other side of Loki, there was always like heroes or whatever. So obviously they were gonna be like, have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
good outcome. Yeah, but like even in the news series, in the Loki series, we saw that too, because all the chaos that he, like as soon as he set foot like in the TVA, like chaos happened, and he brought about so many changes. Like he changed people's mind as to what it was. And like even Sylvie, who was like, I guess like a Loki variant or whatever, they
Yeah.
all were trying to bring about change. And because they were trying to bring about that change, like they couldn't, or they were captured by the
Yeah.
TVA because the
They will
change
get
they were
in each
trying to
other's
bring
way.
about was not good. Yeah. Let's see. I want to make sure I have everything on my notes. Okay, so I kind of, I think, might have like already mentioned this, but I never really saw him as an evil person. Like I always thought like, yeah, he's not doing the right thing, but he didn't seem like evil. Like Thanos was evil, you know?
Oh yeah.
Um but Loki wasn't. He just seemed more like everything he was doing just seemed very petty. Like,
He was
oh,
a very
look at me,
old and
Thor.
very strong child.
Exactly. Exactly. So I never really saw him like that. And then like now that we got so much more information about like Loki's background and sort of his intentions and his sort of like journey throughout the whole time because of the Loki series, I'm like, oh, it's because he was just trying to do something, but he wasn't sure of what that something was. Like he was just creating all these chaos without like an actual goal in mind. He thought he wanted a throne because that's what Odin told him, but not like he didn't really want that. Yeah. So,
He
I mean, I think
craves whatever ADHD riddled nerd craves. Acceptance.
David, stop. Those are my points to make. But yes, you're correct. I think that's
Damn, Skippy,
what
I'm
he
correct.
wanted.
Don't you forget it.
he wanted, he wanted like to be accepted, and like in the first Thor movie, that's what he told Thor. I was like, I never wanted the throne. I just wanted to be your equal. I just wanted to like hang out with you and like have friends and stuff. And he never really had that because they were Thor's friends. You know, they fit in more with Thor than with Loki. Um,
They were a bunch
so
of
yeah, he's
jocks.
sad. Yeah, and Loki's not a jock. He's a nerd. He's the
Absolutely.
nerdiest of the
He's a
nerd.
fucking theater kid slash nerd.
Yeah. Okay, but so after, I think it was like after episode 5, it was like so good for the season 2. It was so good that I just went on YouTube and I was like, I need more information. Like I just need to watch all the YouTube videos to talk about Loki. And then I found one on Screen Crush. they were talking about how Loki actually deserved to be king, and he would have been like a way better king than Thor ever was, because Thor is like a warrior. He's always been a warrior. Like, and even at the end of like, what is it, the third Thor movie, he's went off to like become a warrior. Like, he didn't want to be king. He, like, as soon as he became king, he's like, peace out, both times, right? Because in the, what was it, when Odin died, he was like, yeah, nah, no, when Loki died in the first movie, he was like, oh, you could become king now, like, you're a better person, Thor, right? Loki as Odin. And then Thor was like, I'd rather be with Jane, like, I don't want to be king, bye. And then he just like leaves, and like he becomes king, but he doesn't do anything that's kingly after Asgard like explodes.
Well,
So yeah,
yeah,
he didn't really.
his home exploded and more than half of his people literally died and he couldn't do anything about it. So at that point, it's
But
like he just sat down on his chair and everything went wrong. So there's a
well,
little,
exactly. But like, two things about that. Like, obviously, like, yes, anybody would be like super devastated that that happened, but he didn't. It also seemed like that he didn't really know what to do slash didn't want to do it. Right? He just saw
to
someone
begin
else.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay,
when he
okay.
saw that Valkyrie was doing it, he was like, "Great! I don't have to do it. She'll worry about it. She's doing a much better job anyway." Right? So yeah, I don't know. He wasn't into it, and I guess that's fine, because that's not what he wanted either. That was just something he thought he needed to do, and again, because of Odin, told him that. Um,
Yeah, Odin kind of sucks.
Kinda. Yeah, he sucks a lot. But there's another video too. Um, that talked about how Loki is the best character in the MCU, and I'm like,
That's
yes,
impossible.
exactly. No. This
No, no,
video
no.
is correct. We
Spider-Man
agree.
exists, okay?
Fight me on this,
As
David.
long
Fight
as
me.
Spider-Man exists, that statement is physically impossible.
Listen. Spider-Man is great and all that, but Loki's better.
Well, what do you mean in all
Okay?
that? No, no, no. Spider-Man is the best.
No. This is, what is it? The hill I'm willing to die on, and I will fight you on this, David. Fight me.
That is a pathetic hill, and you're all the way down here. I'm like over here in the mountains.
In the wrong mountains, David. Wrong.
Hey, I'm in the mountains, okay? That's all I care about.
You know, I agree so much with that video. I think it was by Cinema Maze. That I was like, yeah, to everything the video was saying, but I can't remember anything the video said.
Ah!
But I agree with it. So go watch the video and let me know what you think.
Or don't, and just say Spider-Man is better. Let me know in the comments.
Spider-Man is not better. Loki versus Spider-Man. Who wins?
Spider-Man, obviously.
Wait, okay. And then there was like this one other video for like Screen Crush that actually placed Loki in Ravenclaw. Like, you know how we talked about that he was like a major nerd, like
Yeah.
not really a jock, or like, because a lot of people, they're like, oh, Green, he's mischievous, he's like manipulative or whatever. They usually place him in Slytherin, and
But that's too obvious and way too easy.
Yeah,
You know,
and then I never really thought about it. I was just like, oh yeah, sure. And now I'm like, wait a minute, he is a major nerd. Like, he was just like wanting to learn more and to like read and, you know, like geek out with people. That's what he wanted. And I'm like, oh, he's a Ravenclaw just like me. And yeah, like he again, this is part of like the I think is the one where they talked about like he would have made a better king because he's a way better tactician than Thor, who just wants to hit things. And I mean, to be
only
fair,
after
he's strong.
his character arc, I think, that he was able to become the best kind of king.
Who, Loki?
Yeah. Because before his character arc, obviously he was just going to do a bunch of petty stuff and not really take anything too seriously, which is not necessarily a good thing. And even if like serious shit is going down, he was probably just going to make them all run away and disappear real quick.
No,
and not
listen,
really
listen,
confront the problem.
listen. If Loki had a better father, or if Odin was a better father, Loki would have been a great king.
If Odin was a
I
better
think
father, Thor would have been a great king. If Odin was any kind
he
of
would
good
have been a
father.
mid king. He would have been like okay, but Loki would have been better.
Listen. There are two different types of leaders. Ones that lead through peace, and others that lead through war.
And Loki would have led through peace.
Yeah.
But
And
see, here's the
if
thing. So
any
like,
war or fights would have come about, Thor would have had to step up. Honestly, if they
yeah,
like
as
switched
his, like,
spots when
right-hand
shit
man.
happened, they would have been like the perfect duo kings.
So there was this one that reminds me. There was this one interview that Tom Hiddleston made, and he said like, "We can't really have Loki without Thor, right?" And this was like at the
Mhm.
very beginning, and he of the movies that he said this. And now I'm like, at the time, yes, it made sense because both Loki and Thor were not like they didn't have like their character development. So like together they made a great king, but separately they couldn't do it on their own.
Yeah.
So, but like, okay, my last 2 points on this is that what like another reason why I love him so much is that like in oh yeah, this happened in the last season, so you saw it, the last episode of season 2, where he was like, well, if I wanted to learn everything, like how long it would take. And he literally took like centuries in order to be able to learn everything about engineering and space and whatever physics or science
Magic
that he needed
physics.
to learn. Yeah. And then I was like, he's such a nerd. And I was like, in my head, I was like, but did he need to learn all that? Like,
Yeah,
not really.
he's such a nerd.
He said that he learned it because he wanted it to. Like, I don't think it was like quite that necessary. He would have, like, he could have just gone back in time, like talked to Obi and been like, Obi, what do I need to know? And then just done whatever Obi told him. But he said like, no, I need to know this from the beginning. So if they ask me questions, I can like, answer whatever. So he said like, oh, okay, let me just take a couple of centuries off so I can go.
It's
and
to make
study.
everything go faster, and so that he understands the minute details that he needs to change. Because otherwise, you'd be right there and blindly like mucking about and not even realizing what you actually need to do.
Listen, David. But I'm a nerd. I would have done that too. I don't think a lot of people would have chosen that. That's what I'm saying. That I'm like, yeah, he's just so relatable. And then like, did you see his face? Like the face that he made when he like found out that he needed to take centuries to learn something, and then when he came back and then he had to like explain things to people, he was like, yeah, come on, let's just come on, let's do this. And I was like, it just like gave me like this flashback of when I was in grad school, and I was like,
my question is, how long is centuries for an Asgardian? Like, is it a couple of months?
Probably, because
Or is it like a year or two?
And I'm actually gonna talk about this, so I guess that brings us to the next point. But
You're welcome.
before that, his wardrobe has always been on point. Like his drip has always been amazing. So yeah, that's another reason why I like Loki. Like, come on.
Spider-Man?
Bro, he was wearing PJs. The first outfit that he made, it was like PJs. No.
Motherfucker was poor. That's relatable.
But that is relatable. But still. Drip, David. And I'm gonna be editing this video, so I'm gonna put all of the drip that Loki has ever worn.
Yeah, good luck with it.
For everybody to see. You're gonna have to teach me because I don't know. Anyway. Wait, you asked me about like how long like centuries are for an Asgardian, right? So according to the internet, a long time ago, someone was like trying to figure out like the life expectancy, I guess, like compared to like Earth life expectancy, and they did math, and I don't know how to explain it because it was math, so I immediately forgot it. Like it made sense, but just I don't forgot it. But so basically they said, because Loki said that an Asgardian sort of like life expectancy was about like 5,000 years or something. So a couple of centuries is like a couple of months, maybe like a year. Right?
I don't know. I'm asking you. Why are you questioning me?
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. Because okay, so this is the point. Because like the next section that I wanted to talk about, like after geeking out and saying all the things that I like about Loki, which I'm pretty sure I forgot a ton already. I just want to talk about sort of like his healing journey, right? And when we first saw Loki, the internet speculates that he was about 19 to 20 years old. I don't know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't really think that this was a question that it was ever asked of either the cast of like the producers or the writers of like the movies. I don't know if this was ever like clarified or not. It might be just like a fan theory that he was about 19 to 20 years old when that happened and that Thor was like 22 or something. For like the first Thor movie. But in my head it kind of makes sense, especially the way that Loki reacted to when he found out he was like adopted. You know how he just kind of like he was like no, he flew off the handle and he did all these crazy things because of it, and
And then like he
was
freaked
just
out.
yeah, he was like so desperate, and I'm like anybody will react like that if they don't this major
Especially
news.
if throughout your entire life and most of your evil quote unquote deeds, um, all you wanted was just acceptance into the group, and then you realized you were literally not even part of the group genetically. And you're like,
Well,
what
exactly,
the fuck? Have I been wasting
but
my time?
also too you have to keep into account that like not only is he like a frost giant, but like he grew up hating the frost giants. Like Thor, when he was a baby, he was like, I'm gonna kill all the frost giants, and Loki was like, all right, and then he found out he was one of them, and then he probably thought, oh no, like my brother's gonna kill me because he's not really my brother. So like it's just this huge thing that goes on, and like again, like you're not really like your brain's not fully developed, like 19 to 20. You don't really have a lot of wisdom. It's a lot of like impulsivity that goes on. So like I think that's part of the reason why I just felt like I could relate to him like so much, because I was like, yeah, I would react like that too. I don't know, I think I'm so anxious I probably would do nothing, but I would think about it. I would think about reacting like that. um but like the other thing too is like just at any age when you're going through like a major life transition, it's really hard to know what to do or to like do the right thing, right? So we can make a lot of mistakes just going through life, because let's say you're getting you because there's sort of like an adjustment period of like being divorced, getting married, having a new job, going to school, being more independent, like just growing from like middle school to high school, having more responsibility. Like all of those things are like major life sort of like events that happen. And sometimes it happens so fast, and we like do so many cringy things that we would rather not think about it. Because like, did you like honestly like want to sit here and talk about like what you were like or what you used to wear when you were like in eighth grade? Like,
I would
well,
not
I
even be
don't.
able to remember.
Well, that too, ADHD brain. But also, I was like, there were so many like the high school crushes that I had or whatever. I was like, I was so awkward at that time. Not that I'm not now, but I feel like I was way worse then. And like, everybody just wants to like not remember any of that. But yeah, I don't know. Like major life transitions are hard, and it's understandable. Not that I'm like saying, oh, like excusing all the evil things that he did. What is it, killing 80 people in 2 days or whatever? But his reaction, like he had an existential crisis at that time. So
Dude was
yeah,
losing it.
definitely. And this other video that I watched, I don't know
He
how I've seen
lost
so many
his
like screen
marbles.
crush
He
videos.
never really
What?
found them, huh? He lost his marbles and he never really found them, huh?
No, he did, and I'm gonna talk about it later. Um, but like no, I saw it screen crush video. They talk about that his name means like loop in like nurse or something. And then so they talk about how um well, David, you might not know this, but I am here to teach you, so settle down, student, pay attention. You have something to write with? Take notes.
What? No. I don't write stuff. I don't even know how to use my fingers.
Type them then. Voice
No!
to text.
Can't make
But
me.
anyway, like so like there's this whole like awesome explanation as to like why like Loki's life just loops, and it's because now we know it's because of Kang, or like he who remains. He's the one that sort of was like, nah, Loki is destined to like lose. Like he will always lose, no matter what he tries or no matter what he does. He's always just gonna be sort of like a supporting character to everyone else, so everyone else can get better, so the Avengers can win, so Thor can become a better person, so like other people do things, but not Loki. Loki can never have a win, and that just sucks, man. Just in
That
general.
just reminds me of Malcolm in the Middle.
What, like, what do you mean?
Well, you see, for whatever reason, the writers of Malcolm in the Middle decided, hey, let's never let Malcolm have a win throughout the entire show.
That sucks.
Yeah, no, I hated watching that show. Funny as hell. But I really liked Malcolm's character at the time, and I was like, I think around his age or something like that when I was watching it. So I was like, no, this show kind of sucks. Everybody, like, he always loses majorly, and I'm like, dang, dude, I feel
Yeah,
bad for
I
him.
think that's how I felt for Loki, where I was like, dude, he just needs to win, man. Like he just like just a little one, a little tiny one. He needs something like a participation trophy, like at least, you know. So it would
Yeah,
just be. And I think part of the reason why I was always so upset about the way that he was, not necessarily how Tom Hiddleston portrayed him, because I just love his acting choices, but just the way that he was written in like the movies. He was always sort of like either the butt of the joke or whatever. Like he wasn't. To me, at least, it didn't seem like he was reaching his true potential, because the way he was written was kind of like he was meant to always lose. And well, I guess now it was explained that it was, because of Kang or whatever. But I was always like so mad that, he never. I was like, he's just so much more powerful. Like the handful of comics that I've read, like the only kind of magic that Loki used in the MCU, it was like to change his outfit. And then I'm like, I read like 2 comics, and those, like, he had so much more power than that. Like he didn't even use it to fight all that much. Like just creating clones of himself. That was like his just like to go trick. But that was
yeah,
it.
he
And I was
only
like,
did like minor things with
with
his pew
magic,
pew
right?
powers. Yeah,
And then I'm like, come on, man. And then like that just reminds me of like, how Coulson was like, oh, you lack conviction. He was right. Like Loki didn't actually want a throne. He didn't actually want to do this. He thought that's what he was supposed to do. So he was doing all these things. Um and yeah, so like now I see it as like he had like a long journey of trying to figure out like where he belonged, because I think he was like in Thor Ragnarok. Wait, I'm saying it wrong. Ragnar, is it Rag or Rock?
Ragnarok. It's
I don't know.
Thor Ragnarok.
Yes, what he said. um like it was in that one where like Thor was like, Loki, I think you should just stay here. This is a wild, crazy place, and I think you would do well here. And like that was sort of like Thor like acknowledging that Loki did never really truly fit in Asgard, because Loki was different. Not that he was a bad different, he just didn't really fit in. And nobody ever
Asgard
really
wasn't
accepted
right
him.
for Loki. It's not that he
Exactly.
wasn't right for Asgard. It's like, no, 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 no. Asgard's not good enough for you, bruh.
Exactly. Exactly. That's like what I think. Um but like again, it's another part of like why he's so relatable, because again, this is like this whole like identity conflict. And then I'm like, I don't really know anyone who is not going through like some sort of like growth journey, right? Like I know people who are very comfortable being themselves, who are, have a lot of self-esteem, and they're cool, but even then they're still learning, they're still growing, and they're still sort of. All right, where was I before my dog went crazy and over nothing?
I'll be
He seemed
honest
to be
with you.
agreeing with me though.
No fucking.
Okay, all right, listen. Frigga had some good points, right? She gets some brownie points for actually being a loving parent and like being there for Loki and sort of understanding Loki and teaching him magic and sort of like a way that was like a bit like a fighting that was a better fit for him than the Asgardian sort of like fighting style. Um, and she tried to keep in contact with him, but yes, it's almost like a lukewarm sort of parenting, where she was like, oh, she was queen, but Odin was king, and she couldn't do anything about whatever decision Odin made. And I was like, I don't know about that.
She
Like,
really couldn't
yes,
do anything, though.
that's true. That's true. And like again, maybe it wasn't like the best portrayal, because I feel like maybe she would have been like better. At least in the Norse myth, she's like more powerful than that.
Oh,
I don't
absolutely.
really know
Like,
how she's in the
I think in the
comics.
comics, she might also be like actually strong and actually be able to do things and not just kind of sit there and be woman, you know? Marvel did a really, really bad job portraying how active of a character she actually is.
I think part of the difficulty is because it spans so many movies and there were like so many writers and like people that come in and go that and also I think it's because whoever writes like the next part of like the Marvel movies or series or whatever, they kind of have to make do with what already happened, you know? And then so it's kind of hard to like write. I would think, I don't know, I have no idea. I'm like just like
Yeah, no,
making things
this is
up
like
because
part of the reasons
we don't know
why I
anything.
don't like the Marvel movies anymore, because
Oh.
they don't allow one writer to just kind of like handle a set of movies. They keep like switching them out as if it's going to, you know, keep everything the same, but surprise surprise, it doesn't.
Well,
Because
so I
when a
okay.
what?
In Marvel's defense, I kind of like that because I really like Infinity War and Endgame. They were good movies, but they just did the Russo brothers. I feel like they did Loki really like dirty. Like, come on, how
They
like
also
he
did
was tortured
Hulk
by that.
really dirty.
We're talking about Loki here.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Hulk, and we're talking about
Yeah,
writers.
yeah, but like how does Loki go up to Thanos and like try to stab him? At least he went for the neck, but still, I'm like, bro, like you could have done so much better to actually try to kill Thanos, you know? I don't know. Maybe. But I'm
What
like,
happened
okay,
to being a
so
good
like
tactician? Hmm?
I didn't right? I didn't really like how the writers wrote Loki for those movies. So I'm happy they changed to other writers that gave Loki more of an opportunity or showed him in like a different light. So I really like that. I guess again, me being super biased because you know Loki's my favorite.
But how much better would it have been if Loki got a full character arc by someone that actually likes him,
Well,
written
that's why you
wise?
got Loki series 1 and 2. Like, can you like the throne David? Like, he was so like this was something I was supposed to say later, but like he was able to reach his like fullest potential, and like him like the last few scene like where he's like holding on to like all of the threads of reality or like the different branches of time, like he's just like so powerful, and I'm like I refuse to believe that all of a sudden he became that powerful. I'm like he was always been that powerful, but he just never really had a chance or like that conviction to be able to do it, right? Like he never like before whatever goal he was trying to like achieve was a goal that Odin set for him. It wasn't something that Loki personally wanted, but when he found something that he personally wanted, he found a good environment to like grow and learn and people who supported him. Loki was like, I'm gonna put my all and I'm gonna be great for you guys. And like he said it in like the show. Like he was like, I know what kind of God I need to be for you, for me, for all of us, you know? But like that's when he finally found his conviction, his goal, what he wanted to do, what he was good at.
And that
Yes.
is a really good story. The only reason
Exactly.
why it even existed is because a lot of fans really like the portrayal of a guy who actually likes what he does. Isn't that nice?
Yes. and
Isn't that
and I
cool?
think this, like, when I was writing like this, like the sort of script. Wait, let me do this. The sort of script for this
Bullet points.
podcast episode. Uh, I was like, I just so glad Tom Hiddleston was like Loki, because I don't know if we would have gotten like such a good Loki series if it was like um another actor who portrayed him.
Yeah, we
Because I
would have
feel like
never have gotten such a good Loki series if it wasn't for Tom
probably
Hiddleston.
not. Yeah, and I
No,
was
no,
just
no,
like,
no.
I'm just so glad. I'm just so glad he was Loki.
Yeah, this
So
is what happens when you let nerds write about the things that they like. They're gonna be so
about the
cool.
characters that they love, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because, like, what was it? Star Wars got messed up, and a lot of people are like fighting all over that. Then what was the other movie that they were like?
Mandalorian.
Yeah, I heard about that. I was like, ooh, and it was doing so good too.
Wait, what do you mean? I was pointing it out because I thought like the Mandalorian basically saved the Star Wars universe. Am I wrong?
Oh, listen, I'll be honest with you.
You don't know what
I
I'm talking
haven't
about.
heard shit for fuck about the Mandalorian, except that it's still good.
Exactly.
So I
It
was
was
just,
good. The
going
one
with
that
the
was
vibe
bad
on
was
that one.
Boba Fett. Boba Fett was kind of like, man.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I'm thinking
That's
about.
the one you meant, yeah. Because
Because a lot of people were disappointed with that one. They were like, why would you do that?
the Boba Fett series got good when the Mandalorian showed up.
When it stopped being about Boba Fett.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, back to Loki. Um so another thing that I wanted to point out too is that I think I kind of already hinted at this, but like, yes, Loki is the god of chaos and everything, but there's a difference between liking to be like hanging out around chaos or like drama or whatever, or creating drama, than feeling all that internal turmoil or the internal chaos. That's no. We just like stop functioning as humans. And I feel like I just felt relatable because as a therapist, I really like working with people and helping people like disentangle, their thoughts, or trying to figure out what their experience they can get from their experience, or how to go on down the path that they really want. But I don't really like being in that position, like on the other side of the chair, like me being the client and having to talk about it's hard. Like I can be like, oh hey, I can point out things like, oh, that behavior led to that outcome, but when it's my own life, I'm kind of like, I don't see anything, this is just normal. And then I need to go to therapy so they can point it out to me and I can be like, oh, that's right. So like it's like, yes, Loki is mischievous and all that, but like, yeah. We talked about those things.
Yeah, what's next on your bullet points? Your points of bullets.
Trying to. We like completely went off. Started talking about Star Wars instead. Oh, so
yeah, and how disappointed I was with Star Wars.
So one of the things that I really wanted to talk about too, or like point out, is we want to talk about masking, especially because I know that's something that we've talked about before, or we record another episode where we talk about it. But
yeah, masking sucks.
Yeah, but like, what is Loki's favorite magic trick to pull? Is the illusions of himself, right? Like making illusions. He was masking.
You're teaching me.
He was the whole entire time. He was just masking, bro.
Yikes!
Like he made himself look better. The outfits that he would wear, like there was this.
Were always grandiose.
They're so big. Like the more insecure he felt, like the more gold there was in his outfit, like the more intricate it was. And as like time passed, like his outfits became like more comfortable, more
simple.
like, I guess more simple, yeah. And because he was just masking the whole entire time. And I think it's when Mobius has that conversation with Loki about his life and what he really wanted and what made a Loki be a Loki. Um, Loki just kind of realized that, or like explained that it was all part of the illusion, that in order for him to have power he needed to act like the villain, or he needed to make certain decisions like hurt people so people could sort of like respect him, you know. But not, he was, again, he was just masking. And I think a lot of us can relate to that because um in a lot of social situations sometimes we end up asking, especially if you were um if you know, I was gonna say like diagnosed, but sometimes even if you're not diagnosed you're still masking because you're not diagnosed. But you know, you have ADHD, or you're autistic, or you know, you're depressed. And a lot of people, like, you know, like that common thing that people get when you say oh, I'm stressed or I'm depressed. It's, oh, but you don't look it. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's like
well,
this is internal, not external. You know, it's a good
yeah.
thing that
And
you are not a psychologist. Otherwise, oh boy.
yeah, if a psychologist ever like says that to you, feel free to
Leave.
find another one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you
then
don't
just like,
look X, Y, or Z. Well, yeah, you don't look smart or are smart. I'm sorry, dude. That's just like terrible for you,
it's just
I
being super
guess.
petty now. He's like, I suck. No, you suck. um, yeah, but like, yeah, it just makes me really sad now to like come to that realization that he was doing all these like grandiose speeches and he wanted to be seen. And you know how Tony Stark, like during the Avengers, he's like, he's a diva, he wants to be seen, he wants to be, oh no, he's gonna be in top of my tower. And then I'm like, that's because that was the only way he would get attention. Like, probably like in Asgard everybody just made fun of him, didn't really listen to him, like just put him into like this new little box of you're chaotic and mischievous, and you're not really one of us, and you're never gonna be because you're in that box. And then so he, like, nobody really listened to him. Nobody, um he didn't really have any friends. He didn't really have, like, you know, good relationships. So that sucks. And it just makes me really sad to think about that. But also I think, I mean, again, this is sort of like one of the reasons why I really like him and why I can identify with him, and I think why he has such a large fan base, you know, because I feel like a lot of people have experienced that before. And part of the him being a catalyst of change and, you know, being in that weird loop is that he can't change himself. he he wants to be king. He's kind of like stuck in this whole thing, like fight for the throne, lose, die, start it all over again, kind of
Repeat.
thing.
An
Yeah.
infinite loop.
Yeah, and it's sad. And like even Frigga, his mom, is like, hey, you know so much, like you're so perceptive about other people, but you're not perceptive about yourself, because it's hard to be perceptive about yourself. You don't really see yourself, you know,
You
and like a
can't
lot of things.
really look into a mirror until someone holds it up to you, because like any other reflection will always be distorted.
Yeah, exactly. And then so it just becomes like really, really hard um to like understand yourself, especially if you don't really have somebody to talk to. Because a lot, like, part of, like, a big reason of why therapy works is because you have someone there that offers you a space where you're not going to be judged. Sure, you're going to be pushed in order to be able to understand things, and so you can level up, right, in whatever goal you're trying to achieve, that, or whatever goal you bring into therapy. But um you have someone there to listen, someone that will help you sort of process what's going on. And even though Frigga kind of tried, like, Loki didn't really have that. And he didn't start changing until either he hit rock bottom. Like, so we kind of have like two different Lokis, right? Like the Loki that died at the beginning of Endgame, and then like the Loki variant that we see in the Loki series.
Yeah, yeah.
And both Lokis, in a way had very similar endings, sort of, when it came to sort of like uh their healing journey, because they had different paths as to like when they started realizing things, or like accepting themselves, or um like learning all these life lessons. But it was sort of like very similar outcome, like they both needed the same thing, right? Because Loki. But like the Loki of Endgame, he had to go through so many like he made so many bad choices, and he had to suffer so much in order to be able to learn them. And as opposed to the Loki that we saw in the Loki series, the variant, he made the one mistake of like wanting, well, not one mistake, his huge mistake of like, attacking Earth, and wanting to kill all
He
the
did the
first generation.
bad thing. He did the
he
really
did
bad thing.
he did a really bad things, but he had Mobius there to guide him, and patiently remind him and tell him that, hey, that's not a bad thing, that's not really you, so let's figure out what's more you, and then we can head in that direction, right? And and then he just learned his life lessons so much faster because he had a really good environment that
Support
was
system and
helpful to
environment. Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Yes.
Mobius
And
honestly was like a what was it? A therapist friend that's just like really aware of their own like mental, which also kind of like helps out Loki here and there. Mobius
I
was the
think
mirror
he's
that Loki was looking for.
exactly, like he was like the person that was like supporting them and showing him, and like just patiently, calmly telling him like, this is what I see based on your actions, like, but I'm trying to understand, can you help me? And like I don't think anyone in Loki's life had done that before. It was more like, Loki, you suck, you're doing a bad thing, bad Loki, fix yourself. And then, but that's it. And then you're like, oh well, how do I fix myself? Like, it's like, let's say, David, let's pretend you're me, and you lived your whole life having like serious anxiety, and then all of a sudden someone comes to you, slaps you in the face, and goes like, you have anxiety, fix yourself. And then you're like, what?
Oh, thanks.
Like,
I
what do you
I did not realize. Well, wow. Thank you for telling me. It's like I do an absolute. What the fuck do you think I was gonna happen?
no, but like, and
And then
even
you
then,
punch
like,
him in the back.
how,
Yeah.
okay, well, even then, let's say, okay, that's the wake up call that you needed, and now you're trying to fix yourself,
He.
right? But do you fully understand like how far back your like anxiety goes? Like, did you really understand the depth of your anxiety? Did you really understand what it's
What
like to live a
anxiety
life
is.
like without anxiety? Like, none of that was ever explained in that slap in the face, so, and that was
I just
basically
got slapped in the
Loki's
face.
life. There's a fly there, it's gone.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Anyway, so like, it sucked. Like, how can you like heal yourself if people are just like, you suck, fix yourself? Like, how do you do that?
He's like, yeah, but how? No, no, you don't understand. You suck. Fix yourself. Yeah, but how? So
Yeah, and
stop
like,
hitting me.
you know how we talked about like he was masking the whole entire time.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine like how lonely, and like he's just so lonely and misunderstood, and that is really what happens with people like those of us who mask, because it's really hard for us to make really good healthy connections with people, because we're masking the whole entire time. That's taking a lot of our energy, and concentration is going into that. So there's a flies back. There's no like energy left for us to be able to like try to heal ourselves, or like try to like improve ourselves, because
And
everything is
with
going
my
to
own
masking.
experience, yeah, and with my own experience about masking, during school was the time where I would heavily mask, obviously, because yeah, I'd have to be forced into social situations with people that expect me to act one way or another or what have you. So I would either just not interact with people, or I would have to mask. And I remember throughout all of school, it was like I was making decisions and choices that were preset for me for like somebody else. as if I was living somebody else's life or something like that. And I could never do a decision that would actually make me happy. Because if I did, either something bad would happen or I would just get that or I will become a social outcast. And that kind of hurts.
David, you're basically describing Loki as well.
No,
This
it's
is this
me.
is this is it is you, but this is sort of like how Loki was portrayed, and that's how his story plays out, and that's why I find him so relatable. And like I can sort of like understand like your point of view because I had something very similar as well. Not like exactly the same as you, right? But like there's so many people out there who can relate to what you just said because we all been in that position where like it feels like somebody is controlling us, whether it would be the school, whether it would be your culture, whether we be parents, whether it be the friends that we are like we're spending our time with, or like if we're in a relationship, or significant other can be doing this. So it's this really sort of like helpless feeling that you can't be yourself because again you're in an environment that was not designed for you. And especially
And
for you,
school
who
is
were
not
like,
designed for people with ADHD. That is for
this
damn
freaking
sure.
fly is annoying the hell out of me.
Eat it.
I don't know if the fly is agreeing with me or is trying to fight me. But yes, exactly. Like the school system isn't really designed for someone who's ADHD, who has ADHD, who learns in a different way, who struggles to learn in the way that things are being taught in school. So it's yes, it's a sort of like this horrible experience that sadly many people continue to go through every day because there isn't
Because
much change
school
in the school
sucks.
system.
Set them all on fire and revolt.
Calm down. We're not recommending this. Please, this is don't listen.
These are, in fact, the views of the person that's running this channel. Take them as seriously as.
No. No, you know what that reminded me? I have to have like a warning put on here. That I remember the first few episodes that we did for this podcast, I was like only believe about 50% of what David says, and the other 50% he's being sarcastic. Don't believe that. This is one of those times. This is the 50% where you're not supposed to believe him. Okay? Don't believe him.
No. I mean, contractually obligated to be a truth teller from here on out. So I am telling you the
Bro,
truth.
you have no
Burn
contract.
down the school because school sucks. And college
Shut
is a scam.
I wonder how this voice that says, "Oh, the views stated in this are like not part of Psychology for Geeks or the A Pinch of Everything podcast." Please don't listen to whatever David says. Wait. Back to Loki, right? So we said Asgard was a horrible environment for Loki, which sometimes it happens. Sometimes we live in a community or like you're in a school system that was not designed for you, right? But some people have like grow up to be really great adults. Why didn't Loki like grow up to be a great adult? Well, because those people sometimes have an adult or two, or like parents or home, and they go to where they receive that nurturing,
A role
and
model.
the connections. Yes, and Loki didn't really have that because both Frigga and Odin were like not on the same page when it came to their parenting at all. I think Frigga says at one point that she tried to get Odin to tell him about him being a frost giant, and I'm like, Frigga, you the mom, you can be like, Loki, you a frost giant, son. Like she didn't
Loki,
really
you're
like if she
adopted.
thought that was best, right? Because like I just think about like Sylvie knew since she was a kid, and her thing wasn't her inner turmoil wasn't about her identity. It was about whatever the TBA did to her, right? It was more sort of like an outside force that came in. And for Loki, it was like his internal processes were just going off because he didn't know how to manage or understand the fact that he wasn't like an Asgardian like he always thought he was. And so yeah, and also the other thing too, and I was like, I think I saw this in a post too, where someone's like, when Loki, like when Odin like first like held baby Loki, baby frost giant Loki, and then he turned into like this green-eyed, black-haired baby. And I was like, Odin was probably scared that he was gonna turn into Hela, and then he started wearing green and black as his signature colors. That was probably not like a good thing, like a sign for like Odin.
I think that's why he distanced himself to Loki. He was like, ugh.
Dude, that's almost what I wrote on my notes, like literally, because like he probably like distanced himself, like trying to not like make the same mistakes that he made with Hela. So to Loki's eyes, Odin appears to prefer Thor, because Thor and Odin are both like warriors, so they get along better, they understand each other better. And then Odin was like, all right, Frigga, like I'm gonna just peace out and leave all the parenting for Loki to you, because you both are more similar and understand each other. And I was like, yeah, but you're his dad, like you chose to pick him up and take him home with you, like you also need to be a parent. But he was only a parent when he had to like punish Loki, or at least in whatever we see in the movies. That's the only time where he like appeared. Like he wasn't there. Like Frigga was there trying to like, be like, hey Loki, you have to understand, I'm here for you, or whatever you want to talk. And Odin was just like, oh, do I need to punish Loki again?
How many times do I have to hit you upside the head until you understand, freak?
Right. And then, so if you live your whole entire life like that, like, what do you think your self-esteem is gonna be like? Rock
Getting
bottom,
a concussion
baby.
every other day.
When?
Getting a concussion every other day. And let's be honest, after so many concussions, I think he had like some severe brain damage.
Wait,
Do you
what are
think maybe
talking-
that's the actual
Why are you
reason
saying
why Loki became
concussions?
evil?
Wait,
Huh?
why are you saying concussions?
Because of my previous joke.
What was the joke? What did you say?
How many times do I have to hit you upside the head?
Oh, I didn't hear that. I just said like, oh, how low do you think his like self-esteem was? And then I went off to say my own joke that I said, I was like, oh, it was rock bottom. I didn't hear your joke. Your joke was funnier.
Well,
Say it
yeah,
louder.
obviously
Say it
it's
again.
funnier.
Start the whole entire
You're gonna
thing again.
you're gonna hear it on the recording.
All right,
And you can
fine.
just cut it to make it sound like I am the most hilarious person on earth. Which, let's be honest, it's not too far from the truth.
So cutting all of that. All right, great.
No.
No, okay. Not only did Loki was part of a toxic community, his parents weren't doing the same kind of parenting. They didn't really agree. And he didn't really have a role model, because sometimes when like parents get divorced, or one parent leaves, or passes away or whatever, even if that child, or like parents are horrible, but they have like someone like a teacher, or like a pastor or priest, or someone who is very encouraging and like a role model to that child, then that child has a higher chance of being a great adult. But Loki didn't even have that at all. He had no friends. He had like nothing he could like rely on, right? So his self-esteem is low. He had no community, and he was only sought after when somebody needed something from him, right? Thor was happy to completely abandon Loki in prison until Thor needed Loki's expertise to get out of Asgard. And then he was like, and then I'm going to return you back to prison. Not even, I was like, oh, I'm going to reduce a couple of years of your sentence or something.
Immediately
like,
back into
no.
prison.
Yeah, immediately.
You are now a prisoner
again.
for the rest of your life, and you will be used as a weapon when I see fit. Such a good father.
Well, that's exactly what Odin did too, right? He was so like, oh, I grabbed you from Jotunheim so you could create peace between the realms.
JK, LOL.
Yeah, like, dude, what the heck? Like, okay, and that's another thing too, like placing that type of responsibility on like a little child. That's no, you can't do that, dude. Like, no, because a child needs to have that childhood, to be able to learn all of these things in order to grow up with like a healthy self-esteem, healthy boundaries, healthy sort of like outlook in life. But if you sit a child down and you're like, oh, you're the little man of the house now because dad is gone, or whatever, like
Or
that kid
dead.
is gonna be like, oh, am I the parent now? But I'm only 8. What am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know how to parent. I'm barely know how to kid. Like, I'm not even a teenager. Like, what? Like, it just becomes very complicated, and it's not great for anybody to do things like that. And a lot of the times, when I think you said this earlier, where you just said Loki was just sort of like this big child who was doing all these naughty things in order to get attention, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much, because that's the only way he was gonna get it. And then, like, sometimes, and I work with kids a lot, and sometimes you hear teachers or other professionals to say, oh, they're attention seeking. And then I'm like,
yeah, but what does that mean?
Why are they attention seeking? Like, yes, they're coming to you with like the same problem or whatever, but why? Like, is it because they don't have a community? This is the only support they're gonna get. This is the only type of attention they're able to get. Negative attention is better than no attention, dude. Because as humans, we're like social creatures. We want to be around each other. Even if you're an introvert, you still want to have a connection with another person, whether it be through text or just meeting your friend every now and then, or having like a smaller friend group. You still want that connection. But Loki didn't have any of that, so he was like, well, you know what, I'm gonna get it any way I can. Let me just create all this chaos. And
just a little bit.
Just like more flies in here. I don't like. Oh, so annoying.
You are Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies.
No, I don't want to. But they don't listen to me.
That is too bad.
If they listen to me, I would be like, all right, fly, go over there. But he's not even listening to me.
Go over there and do my taxes.
That would be nice. And do them correctly. So Loki didn't really have a support system. Low self-esteem. So he didn't really learn how to manage his emotions. And the way that he managed them, quote unquote, was by creating mischief, projecting onto others, right? Doubling down on getting power.
Being destructive.
You don't want to listen to me? I'll become king. Oh, I can't get the throne of Asgard. Well, I'm gonna take over the throne of Earth because Earth is Thor's favorite. So maybe he'll listen to me then, right? Like, if I'm the king of Earth. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just very much like just very desperate grab for attention. And there's a lot of rage, I think, that gets portrayed too, which this is what I just loved, like Tom Hiddleston's like portrayal of him, because I think Loki is probably the only superhero, or like the superhero, or like the character, I guess, in the MCU that has cried the most. Like, so a lot of it was like he was just so angry that Thor wasn't understanding him, and he just started crying. Like, there was a way, like, he couldn't release his emotions because Thor was not understanding. And then when people did understand, then like all those emotions like welled up. Like, if you never really had like support or understanding, when you get it, it's not sad. It's almost like happy tears. Like, oh, finally somebody understands what I'm going through. And like he just learned to internalize everything, and everything came out like aggression towards others, like playing mean tricks or like making fun of others, whatever, that's what happens. And also, he's the god of lies.
Which makes it so much worse when you're trying to communicate with someone and everybody is like, no, literally never believe him. He is quite basically and literally the god of lies. You cannot like take his side ever. And then you're like, come on, man, I just want a fucking vibe, bro.
So that's a good point that I didn't think of. Because my point was that Loki is so good at lying that he just lies to himself.
Oh, yeah, there's also that point.
Yeah, like your point was good too, though. Like that is a great point. Like, why no one's gonna listen to him if he's the god of lies? And then Loki, just to try to make himself feel better, he just lies to himself, right? And then like I saw this thing where like people were talking about how Loki had such a horrible childhood that he had to impersonate Odin in order for him to get any kind of praise from Odin, because him as Odin was praising Loki, who was dead at the time. But it wasn't really Odin, it was Loki. Loki pretended to be his dad, praising him. Like that's what, he built a statue of himself and he made that play trying to clear Loki's name. It's just sad, man. He just has such a sad story. But again, it's so relatable because I talked about having anxiety and having ADHD. My brain lies to me all the time, and sometimes I just have to go up to David and be like, hey David, what do you think about this? Like I just put a hypothetical situation that is totally real, and then he's like, yeah, no, that doesn't really matter. And I'm like, right, that's what I thought, but my brain was like, this is an urgent situation, code red, blah 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 blah, but it's just a lie, because it's like your whole like anxious brain is being like, this is so what is it, like an urgent thing, matter that needs to be taken care of right now, and it can't wait for later. It can't wait for later, but your brain is in this sort of state of like survival that is like, no, right now.
It's like, you don't understand. We need to figure this out right now, otherwise something bad happens. What's that bad thing? No, you can't think about that, but you do have to finish this thing.
Not David. Like the bad thing is that you're gonna end up living under the bridge. That was always my like, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, well, I'm gonna end up living under the bridge. And then like, if you were to try to like rationalize like my step process, I was like, but that doesn't really make sense. But I don't want to live under a bridge, so I have to take care of this, Like it just like, it made no sense. But my brain was like, nah, that will happen though. Like, yeah, you're gonna end up living under a bridge.
Let's ignore being poor. No, you're under bridge.
Bridge. At least I had a bridge. Had a cover.
Yeah, fuck that. Let's just go back to the woods and start making houses there.
Sometimes I want to, but then I realized that I don't even know how to like really nail in, like use a hammer and like have the nail going straight. And I'm like, I will suck at that. Maybe not. Maybe let's not do that.
It's a lot more cutting than it is hammering stuff in.
But let's live in a society where I can just pay someone else to do that, because I wouldn't be able to do it. Sounds like a lot of hard work. ADHD princess, nah, bro.
But also ADHD brain.
Yeah, but ADHD brain lies sometimes.
Not my ADHD brain. I choose to believe it implicitly.
David, the whole point of this podcast is for you not to believe your lying brain.
No, I just won't believe like your lying brain.
It doesn't lie all the time. It's getting better now.
That's
anyway,
good. So, that's good news.
So one of the things that I kind of wanted to point out or like clarify is there's a lot of videos out there, or posts of people classifying or diagnosing Loki as a narcissist or like bipolar or something. But
tell me about Loki, the narcissistic bipolar insert other thing here.
So I can't, because that Loki doesn't exist. A lot of his behavior that we see as narcissistic or whatever, it was because of like loneliness, because of the trauma that he suffered when he was a baby. And also another thing that I would like to point out is that a lot of those sort of like diagnoses or whatever, they were done based on one movie, and that's not how diagnoses work. Like you actually have to talk to the person. You have to get to like know them and understand, where they were coming from, and like know their story in order to be able to provide a diagnosis. And even if a diagnosis is provided, sometimes it can be wrong, because the DSM is more of a guide and it's not perfect. It's always like constantly being sort of like updated in order, like the more we understand about the human brain and emotions and how it works, it just gets updated. It's never going to be like a perfect system. So That's why I'm always like, diagnosing sometimes it can be great, because especially when I like found out that I had ADHD, I just thought it was anxiety this whole time, or that I was dumb because English was my second language, or like I just didn't understand things. I thought I was just dumb, right? But then I started learning more about it, and I started going to therapy, and I started taking medications, and then everything was like, oh, it all makes sense, right? So sometimes you have situations like that where a diagnosis just makes so much more sense to you, and sometimes you have diagnoses that make absolutely no sense, right? And sometimes those diagnoses are because of just the behaviors or the symptoms that you're presenting in that moment, and sometimes we need to figure out like where really that anxiety is coming from, or like what is the root of the problem. And sometimes, again, the DSM isn't perfect, so so there isn't like a diagnosis for that particular thing. But once you start working through things, diagnosis can be taken away, or like removed, right, from like your chart, I guess. Once like there's an improvement. But again, I just wanted to like clarify that like our behaviors don't always reflect our thoughts and emotions, right? That's why communication is so important, because David, if you were to walk up into my room and then just like start like having this rant about how life isn't fair and you hate it here and blah blah blah, I'm gonna be like, okay. But if I were to start asking, hey, what's going on, like did something happen, and then you reveal, oh well, I had a horrible day at work today, then I'm like, oh, it all makes sense. It's not that you actually hate it here, is that you're going through like a really hard time and your emotions are going haywire, and you need like just to blow off some steam, right? And then I'm like, all right, cool, I
Venting.
understand. But or I just can be like, hey, David, you're like just so mean, bursting into my room and just ranting about it. If you hate it here so much, why don't you just freaking leave? Like that, like it was gonna like that, like our reactions have a lot to do with how other people react to us. And again, just something for us to reflect on, like just our behaviors don't always reflect our thoughts and emotions. And that's why we can't really diagnose someone. Again, just a character, um, like a fictional character. But this is something, okay, I'm gonna go off on like a slight tangent. So the whole reason for like psychology for geeks is to use like the things that we love, the geek culture, into like the therapy session, right? So for example, if we're talking about Loki, we can talk about how I identify with Loki so much because I grew up in and right, so like identify with him. And if I'm not ready to talk about my own problems, I can just say, hey, I would like to talk about Loki. Why doesn't Loki fit in? What can Loki do better? And then we can talk about how Loki can do better by having a therapy, by having a safe place to, or someone to talk to, or having hobbies, having good friends. Those are all gonna be helpful for me as well, because I can identify with him so much. This is a very sort of like brief summary of how geek culture can be like included in the therapy session. But this is why I'm talking about how we have to pay attention to other people's behaviors and communicate with them about what really is going on. And again, why we can't really diagnose people based on what we see in the media.
Yeah, media. Here's the problem about the media. A lot of people would look at a movie or movies and shows and stuff like that and go like, oh, if you fire a bullet to a gas canister, it will explode 100%. Guess what? That's not how that works, and that is not how it will ever work. Because they have, that's part of how they make them. They keep that in mind. So it's not gonna do what it shows in the movies. That's just theatrics. And the worst part about like people believing in the media is that adults are the ones that really can't tell the difference between a movie and real life. Case in point, there was an actor in that portrayed basically what would be the main antagonist or bad guy of Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh
And
yes,
that's, yeah. Do you remember what ended up happening?
I haven't seen the movie. I just know the
No,
movie,
no,
but I haven't
no,
seen
not the
it.
movie, but with the actor.
Oh no, I don't.
Apparently, like this was apparently he was invited to the UN to just make an experience. come out there and talk about like probably his experience as a whatever the heck.
Mm-hmm.
And when he went up there to basically go like, oh, thank you for inviting me to this, yada yada yada, before he even started, they looked at him, these adults, these leaders looked at him dead in the eye and said, do you actually believe on what you said in that movie that greed is good? Because we need to tell you that it is not. And they were talking to him as if he was the one that, was that bad person from the movie. And reading that, I'm like, are you kidding me? These are the same exact people that told everybody that kids, if they played violent video games, because at the time that was like the big thing, we wouldn't be able to tell the difference, and we would start being very much violent all over the place. Guess what? That's not how that works. And I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sure that's more of an holistic thing.
Well, but okay, you brought up a good point, and it's sort of like related to what I was talking about earlier, where like the reason why it works so well for us to include geek culture into the therapy session is because sometimes, like for example, for me, I love Loki so much as a character, and I can relate to him that I can sort of like learn things from his life, right? I can learn by discussing his mental health or his healing journey. But the opposite can happen too. Like that's a bonus of, having movies or characters that you relate to, or um but also the negative side is believing all of these things even though it's fiction, right? Like um and it's not only on movies too, sometimes just seeing it on the news, that's a whole other can of worms we shouldn't really go into because we're never going to get out of it. But again, there is this sort of like connection that we make, whether it would be with characters, fictional or not, that sometimes it's hard to distinguish between, whether that person said it or not, especially when you say, oh, this is based on like someone's real life or whatever. It's because we don't really know how the magic of the movies happen, it can create even more confusion too with people, right?
It's not that hard. If it's in the movie, it's fake.
Yeah, David, but not everybody has the same experiences that you have. And sometimes
No, no, no.
people
Everybody's exactly the same. That's why, we created a system that treats everybody who's exactly the same, exactly the same. That's like, you only need one type of psychology, and because everybody is the same exact person.
David, what if someone listening to this podcast is like, wait, is this correct? David, stop saying things in such like a
I'm just being facetious. Come on, man.
Yes, I know, but like you're so serious. Like, see, this is why you trick me so much, because you have such like a flat delivery that you're so believable, bro. And then I'm like, yeah, that could be true, but it's not. Don't listen to whatever David said. Like, there's different types of therapy. There's a therapist out there for you. Please do that. 50% what David says.
What kind of therapies out there?
Yeah, well, yeah, lots of therapies. Not David. We're getting off the track. You're the one that was like, nah. When we record episodes, I want to like stay on track, and now you're like, nah. Let's go and talk about something else now.
You didn't give me a track to stay on, so I'm like, we're either talking about Loki or therapy, which is like
we're
the whole point
Loki
of this entire thing.
Wait. Okay, so we started talking a lot about mental health, so I guess it's now time for us to talk about, I guess, the resolution of Loki's healing journey, right? So I talked about how there's sort of like two Lokis that we're familiar with, and that's one of the one that died at the hand of Thanos, and the one that is in the Loki.
Wait. I have a really important question to ask.
Yeah.
Did Loki ever meet Spider-Man?
I don't think so. Because Spider-Man came after Loki was long gone, and he was,
Okay, so
and
that
even
means that if Loki had ever met Spider-Man, he would have probably become best friends with him.
does it, aren't there like a lot of like, I've seen a couple of pictures of like the comics and stuff where like they do interact with each other and they have like really cute interactions with them. Or am I just like making this up? Might have been fan art. I don't know.
It's probably fan art, but like, let's be honest. If Loki was disguised as someone or something like that and met Spider-Man, they probably would have like fucking hung out with each other.
It's very likely.
Yeah, and then like after that, Loki would have been cured.
Okay, I don't know about that, but
No, it's Spider-Man. He can do anything.
Okay. Anyway, back to Loki. So Loki, Loki that sacrificed himself in like Endgame.
He died.
Eventually had this growth, right? Because he finally got acknowledged by Odin in the third movie where when Odin was about to die, which is like the worst.
But yeah, only after
Odin
Odin dies, he's like, no, you know what, kid? You're actually a pretty good son. JK LOL, and then dies.
He like tries to be a good dad, and then he's like, Odin sleep, or like, oh no, I'm dying now. But like in the few minutes before he, like something like is gonna happen to Odin, he's like, all right, I guess I'll try to be a good dad to Loki.
The only time when I will acknowledge you is when I will not see you.
Right, like when I
for a very long time.
Yeah. So okay. So he Loki got acknowledged by Odin, and Odin praised him by like the enchantment that he used to put Odin to sleep, and by tricking him, and also told him that he loved him. And Thor also accepted that he was mischief, right? That he was mischievous, and Loki was gonna do what Loki was gonna do, and Thor wasn't gonna always be there for him, and they weren't the same people, or they didn't want the same things, and that was okay. And then I think Loki maybe just, we didn't really see this part, but in the end, he did identify himself as. I don't quite remember the quote, but I think he accepted that he was a frost giant. Like at the end, like the speech where he like right before he tried to stab Thanos, he accepted that he was a frost giant and that he was also part of the Asgardian royal family. So he kind of like found that connection and that support that he always wanted, but it kind of came a little too late. And again, that's sort of like why he sacrificed himself, because he finally found what he wanted and he was willing to sacrifice everything for that, because he knew just how valuable it was, because he went through a bunch of horrible stuff and then finally found it, you know? So he understood the value of having that, and he was like, I'll sacrifice myself in order for you guys to be okay. Or do what Loki did in the Loki series, find yourself a therapist and skip all that. Because that's basically what happened. Like, Mobius basically scared Loki straight, right? Like, scared him up, be like, hey, if you don't like work on yourself, like be yourself and do all these things for yourself, this is what's gonna happen. And he was also removed, like completely removed from the toxic environment that he was like in Asgard, from everyone around him. Even though they were his family, they weren't like the most supportive. So it was probably the best for Loki to be able to be completely removed from that sort of like toxic environment. And he found Mobius, who was immediately wanting to help him and believed him and had this like sort of bright outlook for Loki specifically, and was interested in Loki and allowed Loki to talk, like provided like that safe space for Loki to be able to talk, which he never really got. Because I think the one time when Thor actually asked Loki, what do you think, it was in the middle of the battle in Avengers, or it was like right before like a major battle. So like there wasn't really enough time to talk. It wasn't the right sort of environment for Loki to be like, nah, yeah, like I feel lonely and you guys suck. Like he couldn't say that because like there was no opportunity. Like it was like there was a lot of fighting going on.
Yeah, shit was going down. How were you expected to be all introspective when all of a sudden there's a giant rock falling at your face.
Exactly. Or you had to find a ship to travel to the giant anus.
The giant anus of the sky.
um, and also like he found someone to, uh, someone he wanted to sort of protect and wanted to help. He found Sylvie. And he tells her, he's like, I don't care about a throne, I don't really care, but I just want to, like, his goal eventually just became helping Sylvie out. And he had a goal that he set for himself. It wasn't anything that anybody said for him. It was something he chose, and that can make the whole difference. Because, David, let me just put it to you this way and see if you can sort of like understand what happens when you're cleaning your room and I come in and then I'm like, David, you should clean your room.
I do the opposite, which is nothing.
But why? You were already cleaning your room.
Yeah, but then you told me to.
Exactly. This is just like all of us, or most of us, react like that when you're telling us to do something. Well, we just want to, especially with ADHD, like we're just like, oh well, my motivation flew out the window because now you told me to. But a lot of the times, like if you are like out of the goodness of your heart trying to do something, and then someone's like, oh, you're only doing this for attention, or you're only doing this because blah blah blah, or for your own benefit, then it just really sucks. You know, like you just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Or even if it's good advice, you're like, oh yeah, but now you told me. Like,
So, well, you know what?
Why,
fuck you.
that's why in therapy we don't tell people what to do. We try to explore other options. We pose questions. We, talk about scenarios or like what's going on, help the person figure it out for themselves. And this is why like forcing someone to go to therapy doesn't work, because it's not a decision they made for themselves. It's not until like they decide that, yes, I want to go to therapy and I find this helpful, that's when, it becomes helpful. But otherwise,
yeah, because only the person that wants to move will move. Can't really force another person to move. I mean, you can, but they're not gonna continue moving. They're just gonna stop. Right.
And it wasn't until Mobius was like, oh, what was it? It was a great quote that he said. Mobius said, you could be anything you want. You could be good, just in case nobody ever told you could. Right? And like, again, it was like this very gentle way of suggesting things to Loki. Mobius was never like, you have to be a better Asgardian, like you're an Asgardian prince, or like, he was never like that. He was very encouraging, and that's exactly what Loki needed. Sometimes people do prefer to have someone flat out be like, nah, that decision was horrible, you shouldn't have done that. And sometimes that's sort of like, like the way that they learn, it's better. But Loki specifically needed someone to be a little bit softer with him. Maybe that's why Odin's parenting never really worked on Loki. And Frigga's did, but Frigga never really backed it up. She kind of
she didn't. She only said things, not really do anything. Yeah. Which is why I don't like Frigga as much as people like her. Yeah, she's cool and all, but at the same time, she didn't do shit for Loki. She never stood up for him.
So unless Canelo's like sorry, I got distracted because Canelo just freaking he's like, this fly, man, this fly is annoying me.
Dude, same.
Anyways,
sorry. We're almost like 2 hours into the recording, so.
Oh my gosh, are we serious? Okay. Yeah, well, okay. We're almost towards the end. Well, we
only have like 5 more pages to go. Let's go.
I mean, Loki in the TVA, he, I guess quite randomly, found a place where he could be himself. And he, so one of the things that I noticed too, I don't know if this was probably because the writers were so good at this, in the Loki series, but when Loki started becoming more comfortable with being himself, he started using a lot more magic to fight.
Oh yeah, weapons were always Asgardian to begin with.
Yeah, and then it made me, when I was writing this, I was like, wait a minute. He was probably like stopping himself from reaching his full potential, like by using his magic, because it wasn't seen like an Asgardian thing. So he forced himself to use magic only to like change his outfits. Again, it was part of his masking, where he just wasn't doing what came more natural to him, you know?
Makes sense. Especially when you think about like the one time the old Loki was like, guys, if you paid attention to the things that you actually like and actually want to do, this is how powerful you can become, and then did the whole illusionary place.
Yes. Oh, Loki, like he was like, if you stop and you concentrate on your magic, like you know what? Like made me really sad though is that old Loki died, and then Kid Loki was by himself with Alligator Loki, and I was like, and now I'm wondering what happened to the other Lokis, like the other variants.
He probably set them free as the fact that he's like inside the whole
He
what was
probably sent
it,
them back to their own
Yggdrasil.
timelines.
Yeah,
Oh
probably
my
because
god!
like he was in this chair of Yggdrasil or whatever.
At the end, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I
Timeline
don't know if Loki
Yggdrasil.
could have done that, but maybe the TVA could have, because the TVA sort of changed, like completely changed.
Yeah, probably.
Another thing that chaos created, it changed the TVA for better, much better.
Now
Okay,
all they do is go after Kang.
yes. So one of the things that I really wanted to like point out is that in his healing journey, Loki learned to become the main character of his own story, because he was always the second son. He was always the second prince of Asgard. Like he wasn't anything outside of that, not really. Then after that, he became a villain, someone for the Avengers to fight, someone that kind of helped Thor, someone that was sort of like always on the side. Like he was always a supporting character, but in this one, he had the opportunity to become the main character of his own story. And earlier we talked about how sometimes, especially if you come from collectivistic cultures that are more sort of like about the group as opposed to the individual, it can be really hard to be the main character of your own story, because the main character in your life is the family or the culture. It's not you. And having like that balance between being your own individual, the main character of your own story, but also keeping in mind the group or the family, can be quite tricky to navigate. And like finding that right balance can take a while for King to get there. But he finally, because almost in a way, like, because I did say that Loki ended up switching his goal from like the throne to helping Sylvie, right? Again, not only was it his choice, but it wasn't like he was putting himself down and only doing everything for Sylvie. He was still trying to do the right thing for both of them. It wasn't like Sylvie's goal like took over for Loki, because then at the end he was like, Sylvie, wait a minute, like I don't think we have to kill he who remains, like maybe there's a better way. But Sylvie was like, nah, we have to kill him, dude. Like he was still in a place where he could, or with people where he could be himself, where he could have his own thoughts. He didn't allow like Sylvie's goals and thoughts to sort of like override his own, much like Thor always expected out of him. Because in the first Thor movie, I think Thor tells him, "Oh, know your place, brother. Like, why are you like correcting me? Like, I am the first prince of Asgard, like, or I am Thor, whatever. Like, you shouldn't be doing this to me." Um, so yeah.
Now that's narcissistic.
What did I say, David?
What?
Can't judge people just based on their behavior. You have to fully understand. David,
No,
can't just
no, no,
diagnose
no,
people
no.
like that.
I'm gonna start throwing out random terms I've heard you say and say, no, that is 100% what that is. Gaslight,
No.
narcissist, gaslight, again.
Are those the only two you remember?
Shut up.
Yeah, we already talked about that. Yeah, and again, it's just it- Loki in the series again had this moment of where he accepted himself being a first giant, accepted that he was a lonely person and that he wanted his friends and that he was being selfish and that he wanted his friends to be like, he was doing things for his friends. Um, and I just really like the fact that they included, like, when Loki had to make this really hard decision, he sought out Mobius and then he was like, Mobius, what should I do? And like he went to ask for his advice because he finally had someone who understood, someone whom he trusted, to give him information. And he also went to Sylvie. And Sylvie and Mobius both gave him like different well, kind of like slightly different opinions, but Loki was able to sort of like on his own make his own decisions and sort of like put those two together, like that advice that he got from the two people that he trusted or the people that he consulted. And he was able to reach his full potential. I mean, he became so powerful. Do you know how many times I've seen that scene, like on TikTok and like pictures on Instagram and just like anywhere I go, it's that scene of Loki like dragging like all of the
Dead timelines.
yeah,
Looking
the
like a fucking
timelines and like
badass.
sitting on his because he was. And can we talk about the outfit just for a brief moment? It looked the most comfortable outfit that he has ever wore, and but it was so in my head I was like, it was just so majestic and it was just so powerful and it was just so cool, and I want to cosplay it so bad.
I like
So bad.
that when he was grabbing the dead timelines and keep grabbing them, some of them were being attached to his cape.
Oh yeah, like his
And that
cape
looked
sort of
really
grew
fucking cool.
attached to it. Yeah, that was it was just amazing. And again, he was able to reach his fullest potential because he had his friends, because he was in a safe environment, because he was allowed to be himself, because he accepted himself, right? And almost in a way forgave himself for all the bad things he had done before, right? Like, and he wanted to change. So yeah, like just talking about all of that, how can I not want to be a therapist, bro? Like, we saw how much or like how fast his healing journey was just based on having someone to provide a safe space for him to be able to talk and ask hard questions when it was needed. And so that's what therapists do. And I just love it. And then but I'm like every time people like I would meet someone new and they would be like, oh, what's your favorite Marvel character? I was like, Loki, of course. Like, is there any other character? And then they're like, why?
Yeah, Spider-Man.
And then I'm like, yeah, we're gonna cut that.
No, I'm not gonna cut it. I'm gonna redo the line
I'm gonna
and put it into the final edit.
No. I'm the one in charge of uploading into YouTube. I'm not even letting you get anywhere near this one.
Yeah, you don't even watch the videos you upload. That's all I'm saying.
True. But this is why I'm gonna edit this one.
Sure.
Anyway.
Hey, by the way, if the videos go down in quality, you know who edited.
Kind of, but not true. I'm really trying. I was thinking of like, cause I just recently edited my first video and I was like, I could have done something. I don't know. Cause it was like my first time. So I was like, probably it might not be the best, but all right. That's why I told you to check it. Anyway, back to Loki.
And then I told you, it was like, hey, can you watch the video? And then like, you'd never do. And then I was like, okay. Just don't be mad at me when you don't like something.
Well, right back at ya. Don't be mad at me when I cut everything every time you talk about Spider-Man being the best, because clearly Loki is the best.
See, now that you
David,
have
you're dragging this out. You're the one that's like, hey, we have 2 hours. Like, can you like speed this up? Let me finish, man.
This is what happens when you don't like, something ADHD. And I'm gonna blame it all on you.
And my journey, like my own healing journey through discovering Loki's healing journey and like me wanting to become a better therapist. It's not about you, David.
That's narcissistic, Lisa.
Anyway, so like when people ask me,
see, she's gaslighting.
Loki's my favorite character. Um, I always say that he would have been a really great hero if he had gotten therapy when he was a little boy, which is true. If he would have been told by his parents that he was a frost giant from the beginning,
If his
and a
parents were
therapist,
better, he would have been so much better.
but and this is like why it's very hard sometimes to find a therapist for a child, because not only are you working with a child, but you're also working with the family, because the therapist is only there for like, an hour every week, but the parents are there all the time. Sometimes the therapist has to also, do some therapy with the parents, or like suggest things, or be like, hey, this is what your child is saying, and these are some changes that need to happen in the home in order for the child to continue to grow and learn. And so if I was Loki's therapist, I would have, in a nice way, told Odin and Frigga that they suck as parents and that they needed to step up their game, and Loki would have been such a great hero. But no, we don't have that. And I think this is why, like, recently there's been the sort of like this growth on social media, talking about healing your inner child, because you know that phrase, an old dog can learn, wait, what is it, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yup.
New tricks. That's a total lie. Yes, you can. And also, you can, doesn't matter how old you are, like, you can still heal like the wounds that you received as a child. Maybe not fully. It's not like it's never, like, it's gonna fully disappear and you're gonna just automatically
It's
be
just
better.
gonna
Like,
hurt a lot less.
It's gonna be a journey, and you're gonna be more comfortable with, being yourself, geeking out about the things that you love, buying the collectibles that you always wanted as a kid or whatever. It's gonna be a thing, but it's like a great thing, and not an easy thing, but it can be done. Like, you can still find healing even if you're 80, you know. And yeah, I mean, Loki basically just addressed his issues, and it just gets me thinking, because I love working with kiddos. And if every kiddo out there had access to a good therapist, then the world would be so much better. And also, if we be, I'm gonna start with this. So the camera died, and it's hours since then, and we don't remember where we stopped, and we were both too lazy to check. Let me just drink my tea to calm down, because I'm really upset about the camera dying. Like, it only lasts 2 hours. Actually, I'm surprised that we've been like talking for 2 hours. Well, I shouldn't be surprised. We're talking about Loki.
It's your favorite character. You were info dumping the entire time. And that's fine.
No, dude.
That's what I'm here for.
Like on the break when we were waiting for the camera to charge, I went on TikTok, and then I started like seeing more things, and I was like, oh, I have more thoughts that I want to share, and I was like, no, this is already too long. We just need to finish it. Do the last ending bit, and then we're good to go. But there's so much more.
Absolutely.
So much more. Okay.
Maybe a little too much more. Maybe a part 2 eventually.
Yes.
Or never. Who knows?
I could make a whole podcast just talking about Loki. Yes, David, that's a good idea. See, each episode would be like a movie, and then like one of the episodes in the series, and then we can move on to like the book, and then like the comics. Oh, that's a great idea, David. You're a genius.
I'll be fine with the comics, but we'd also have to introduce other comics, like Spider-Man comics.
That's a different podcast, David. This is a Loki podcast, not a Spider-Man podcast. All right.
Too bad.
Anyway, what was I saying? Wait, I was not saying anything important.
That Spider-Man was better than Loki.
Wait, Loki. Yes. Okay. I don't really remember how far down. Okay, I think the one thing I do remember saying is that, I think, in my opinion, allegedly, Loki would have been a great superhero if he would have received therapy as a child. Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, you know what? I remember we were talking. Well, my train of thought before the camera died was that we were talking about one thing that encourages me to become like a therapist or a better therapist when I think about Loki is that I also want to be a catalyst of change. David and I, we were raised in this community that's sort of like in the middle of nowhere, California. And there are not a lot of resources, there are not a lot of events. It's so boring to be here. And everyone says that and thinks that, and they just leave. And so the communities, instead of progressing, it's sort of like stunted. It's what was the word you were using the other day, David? Stagnating. Yes.
What? Cut out a bit.
It's the community is like stagnating.
Oh yeah.
No, well, okay, like not. I don't think it's stagnating. I almost think it's like getting worse. There's like less things to do. Well, not really stagnating because we have a really awesome park now, and I wish I was a kid because he has like one of those water shooting thingies. I never got that.
We could go
as an adult
because we're adults. Yeah, absolutely.
But it gets so hot here, and the sun hurts my skin, and I'm like, no, thank you. Anyway, the community is stagnating, so I want to be a catalyst of change for that community. So I want to have all the power and all the money, so then I can do a bunch of like free geeky mental health events for everyone in my community. So in essence, Loki also encourages me to be ambitious, so then I can have the seat of power, so then I can give out free therapy and geeky mental health things for people. Yes.
David, absolutely. And then after that, arson.
No, not that.
Listen, if it doesn't work once, you arson. If it doesn't work that time, you arson again, but harder.
Okay. Anyway, moving on from David not making sense. You have to forgive him. We did have a long break, and I don't think his brain is working anymore. The brain cell that we share has been moved to me today. So
listen, I was eating, and then that got interrupted. That's all I'm saying.
You were finished.
Not with that attitude. I could have kept going.
It's probably not good. Anyway, so the last little bit that I wanted to talk about is some of like the life lessons that we can learn from like Loki's life. And again, I don't think we would have gotten this amazing character if it wasn't for the actor that plays it, and like all of the fans, and also like all the sort of people working behind the scenes that love this character so much to be able to create this character development. And I love them so much because I just am a fan and I love it. And also because it continues to encourage me to become better, to become a better therapist, to continue trying to help and becoming that catalyst of change in my community as well. But also breaking out of the loop, right? Like Loki was able to break out of the loop, so I think we can too. Or at least it encourages.
It's going to be hard. It's going to take some time. But like step 1 is easy because that is kind of like learning how to walk. I mean, not easy, my bad. It's hard because it's learning how to walk. And then after that, it's just practice of what you are building up on.
I think the hard part...
And each step is going to be slightly different.
Correct. I mean, the hard part, I think, is... No, my dog wants to go out there and fight a cat that we hear meowing. No, you can't go outside. I'm talking about Loki right now. I have no time to parent you. No, stop crying. No. Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, the way that I see sort of like our favorite characters or comfort characters is that sometimes through their like story, we see the options that we have available to us, right? So, for example, one thing that I talked about earlier was like I really like the Loki always finds a way to amuse himself. Basically, he's amusing himself, um, just by doing things that annoy other people or whatever. Might not be my style, but again, it encourages me to find the bright side or to amuse myself, and also to like think of myself as the main character of my own story, right? And then so I wanted to talk about some of the lessons. This isn't like a complete list, just sort of like the ones that I really liked um from Loki's life. So I think there's a lot we can learn, even though they're fictional characters. Again, we talked about like what could be good from like really enjoying fictional characters, and the bad side of it, right? Like people just believing people are the way they are portrayed in the media. But one of the things that we can learn from Loki is that self acceptance is sort of like one of the building blocks of mental health. And we saw it with Loki, right? Like once he started accepting who he was, that he was a frost giant, that he was adopted, that he was the god of mischief, he started to sort of like loosen up a little bit more. He started to accept, he started to like talk more to other people, to try to make those connections with others. And we also see that sometimes trying to protect someone can cause more harm than good, right? Especially if we're talking about adoption and not discussing that with a child, because it can be done at an appropriate age level for them to be able to understand. But like we saw it, like we talked at length about Odin and Frigga, how they were like, oh, we just didn't want him to feel, different than anyone else, or think that we didn't love him or whatever. And I was like, yeah, but it didn't help, right? Like that.
Yeah, and you were
protectiveness
very
didn't work.
passive in trying to get him to live a life,
Yeah,
They kind of sucked.
kind of lot sucked, yeah. And then so yeah, so I think whenever you're thinking of, oh, I'm just protecting my children or whatever, I think it would be beneficial for everyone involved to try and reflect or consult someone, about it, or talk about it, discuss it with other people that you trust. Oh my God, my son is not. What? You can't go outside. I told you no. Go over there. No. All done.
But there's cats over there, and you need to fight them.
No. He's annoying. He already wanted to fight them earlier.
Let him fight.
That's why it took so long. No. All done. All right. Anyway. Okay, so that's another thing. And again, like just as self-acceptance is very important for like our own mental health, having a supportive and encouraging community is also essential, right? And even if it's only one person, sometimes that's all that's needed. As long as we have that one person that we trust, that encourages us to be better, to continue trying things, sometimes that can make all the difference, not only for children but also for adults. I think I talk a lot about how David is my one person, like my safe person. Whenever I go to therapy and come back, he's like the one person. If I'm trying to work on something like improving my communication skills or like showing my vulnerable side, David is my to-go person. And I'm slowly expanding that circle to like my other friends and my parents. But yeah, again, just having one person can make all the difference.
And this is the best type of circle to expand.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good circle, not like the circle of Loki, like just fighting for the throne, dying, and then like repeat all. No, this is a better circle. The good circle.
It's the circle of life.
Can Disney sue us for that? Nah, your singing was not great. I think they'll be alright.
It was perfect. It's pitch perfect. And in fact, I probably have to censor it.
Okay.
You have to put a disclaimer that this is only a parody.
Oh, this is one thing that we could get out of Loki's life that is not something that we saw happen until much later, but could have been very helpful from the beginning, and that is asking for help. If he were to have asked somebody for help to try to process, when he was going through his identity crisis or something, like it would have been a much different story. And sometimes we're like, oh, we're adults.
Yeah, but would you believe the god of lies?
Exactly, but that's the thing, right? Like he didn't even try. Maybe if he tried, if he went to Frigga and asked, like, for more of her help, maybe it would have been a slightly different story. I'm hoping. I just want to think positive, okay, David? Asking for help is really hard, but it can be so helpful to do, especially if you're going through something. Because it's in those moments when we need that support, right, from other people. But unfortunately, other people are not mind readers, and again, like, our behavior doesn't really reflect our emotions. So a lot of the times we default, especially as adults, we default to having this sort of like mask when we're feeling sad or stressed or anxious or whatever, and then so people don't really know or understand. This is why it's important to like check on your friends, but again, it's also important to ask for help and to seek the advice of people. Loki did it, right? When he went to Mobius and Sylvie at the end of the season. I just saw a bunch of like that last scene when Loki says goodbye and then he becomes like the god of stories, like the god of time. It's just so impactful. Everyone is replaying it over and over. It's like in everyone's like feed, and I'm just so sad.
To be fair, it is such a
it's iconic.
big moment.
It's so
Not
iconic.
only that, it's such a is it vindicting?
No, I used
it's not
that word
vindictive.
wrong.
It's,
I said it, but I think I used it wrong. It's validating.
'cause
It's more like a
vindictive is a bad thing.
validating moment for Loki.
Yeah.
And
It's such a cathartic and validating.
Yes. That's a word I would like you to remember. Not all the other ones you were throwing around earlier. Don't remember.
Gaslight?
Yes, not. No. Validating. Remember the good lessons I tried to teach you.
Cathartic.
Yes. Anyway, let me take another sip of my tea just to make myself feel better. Because just every time I see that scene, bro, I'm just like so heartbroken. I mean, it is incredibly validating, but also so sad because his biggest fear was being alone, and he ends up alone. He's doing it for his friend. It's his choice. But I can't. It's like he got half a win. Like, I think earlier I was saying like, oh, can he just get a participation trophy? And this feels like he got a participation trophy. And I want to take that back now. He deserved a real trophy. And I really do wish that he will come back. There's a lot of like speculation right now going on as to whether or not Tom Hiddleston will return as Loki. And I'm like, just one more movie where he fights alongside the Avengers and he's a great hero. Come on. That's what I need, please. My son is sulking over there because I didn't let him outside.
Good.
Oh, yes, another thing, communication. Communication is so important. Loki is a great liesmith. He's very good at using his words, but he didn't really know how
In the worst way possible.
Well, he didn't know how to communicate his own emotions, right? Or his thoughts, because they were like so jumbled up. But when he sort of like started learning or started practicing that, he just got better and better as time went on, right? And we saw that sort of like in the Loki series. But again, communication is not something you learn not just in school. Like, it's a lifelong learning process, right? Because it changes, we change. So like we have to constantly continue to try to like level up our communication skills, not only to make presentations, but also to like, try to get our point across, to try to explain our emotions, to try to explain our thoughts and ideas. And sometimes that can be very hard, especially if you have ADHD, all your ideas all over the place, and it's really hard to get to the point. As you guys noticed in the past 2 hours, I can't really get to the point. Anyway.
It's been 16 minutes.
It's been what?
16 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Well, we only had like a page left. Let's see. One more thing. Oh, yes. We saw the difference that processing and managing, like actually managing your emotions, had on Loki, right? Because at the beginning I said that the way that he managed, quote unquote, his emotions is that he was like accusing other people. He was like projecting onto others. He was just angry. That's not really managing your emotions. He was like just putting a band-aid on the wrong place too. Like it's just he wasn't really doing anything. And then so like understanding our own emotions and like being able to communicate them and do something when we need it, right? Again, it's just I kind of like go back to like Loki learned to be the main character of his own story, where he took himself sort of like seriously. He is also important. It wasn't just about the throne, it wasn't just about Asgard, it wasn't just about Thor, it was about Loki and what Loki wanted. And you know, he learned to do things and to channel them in like an effective and like healthy manner, even though again he ended up alone. He was just so sad. Just the face, like Tom Hiddleston's face at the end, where he was like trying to smile but he couldn't because he wanted to be happy for his friends, like being alive and all the changes at the TBA, but he was just so sad because he wanted to be there with them and he couldn't. I just can't. Anyway, yeah,
And he never will.
David,
Or he
stop
might,
it!
I don't
Don't
know.
say that. And also the last thing I wanted to talk about, and I kind of like went on a huge rant about this, is that going to therapy can significantly shorten your healing journey, right? And we saw it in the Loki at the TBA. He started learning and processing everything so much quicker than when Loki was sort of like left on his own. And again, this is why, you know, therapy can be so effective, because not only do you have a safe space to talk, and you have someone who is trained, you know, to be able to help you. So it's just, you makes everything go so much more faster. So yes, therapy is good. And I can say that from experience, not just because I'm a therapist, but you know, both are right. All right, that's really okay. That concludes the end of my rant. Anything you would like to add before I do the closing statement, David?
Go faster.
Yeah, my song over there is like losing it. Okay, fine. Okay.
He's like vibrating.
Dude, basically
phase
he's just like
through
walking
reality, my
back and
dude.
forth, and he's like, "Come on, mother." Okay, so both Canelo and David are on the same page, and this has been long enough. Not long enough for my liking. But yeah, thank you so much.
Well, you're gonna edit. You're about to figure out what long enough is.
I'm gonna make it just this long. No, but my point being is that I could sit here and talk about Loki even like for longer, and even though you don't really want to. That's my point. Anyway, thank you so much for making it to this point. It's probably going to be like a 2-hour long thing. So thank you so much for making it to this point. And if you would like me to like do like a podcast just talking about Loki and analyzing him in every movie and every show and every comic, help me convince David, please. If this video gets a lot of likes and a lot of views, we will do it. Right, David?
Never.
That sounds like a yes to me. All right.
No.
Yeah, so share with others. Let me know if there's other like characters you would like us to talk about or whatever. Let me know what you think about some of the things that we talk. If you have any theories about like why Loki did something, or if you think that I got something wrong, please let me know, because I really don't fact check any of this. This is all like just from memory. And yeah, just like, subscribe, and share this video. The last bit in my thing, I was like, come on, Loki Army, we can convince David to do more of these episodes. We can do it. Yeah, you can also check out my website and my social media for more mental health and Loki content. And don't forget to reframe and re-enchant your life.